All right, guys, what's going on? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. And in this one, we're going to be talking about the shortening of seasons, because in XDefiant, that's been one of the big topics of discussion over the course of the last month or so, more concentrated now than ever, because quite frankly, the game's been out for 6 months. And basically, a lot of people have been saying that these 3-month seasons, especially with the kind of amount of content that we've been getting, on top of that, just really isn't cutting it. And a lot of people have been requesting the shortening of the seasons. And that's what we're going to get into. And of course, as of the time of this recording, after we get through the meat and potatoes of this particular commentary, I am going to recommend two, not one, but two Thanksgiving movies that I recommend you guys watching, because we're about 3 days away, as of the time of this recording, away from Thanksgiving. And on top of that, I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler alert. Both of these movies are actually comedies. So yeah, but anyway, let's get into the meat and potatoes first, and then we'll get into that fun topic right after that. So the shortening of the season of XDefiant. Now, first of all, obviously I always like to use these kind of videos as feedback for the devs, because I do know that there's at least one that watches my stuff. They show up on stream every so often, but I'm pretty sure the devs themselves every so often like to watch a variety of different content creators out there, whether they're sponsored by Ubisoft or not. They just kind of watch things. I mean, it's probably something that's not new when it comes to all sorts of different games. But with that being said, I want to ask you guys, how long do you think the seasons should be? Now, I personally think that they should be 2 months instead of 3, because, well, not because Call of Duty or some other games out there might do it, but really, if you think about it, 8 weeks is the perfect sweet spot. You know, it's like once you get past those 2 months, everything starts to feel a little bit repetitive and all that kind of stuff. Plus, when you're thinking about a 90-tier battle pass, whether you are the most dedicated player or whether you are, you know, the noobiest of the noobs, so to speak, right? I think 8 weeks is more than enough to basically get through the battle pass. By the way, speaking of battle pass, guys, I mean, is it really too much to ask to basically, like, once you've got the battle pass, to be able to keep it and to go back and to complete it? This is something that Halo Infinite actually did right. And I'm thinking, well, why can't XDefiant players do that as well? I mean, I personally don't see anything wrong with that. And on top of that, for like, it's also a form of content that players could always go back and finish, right? Because there's sometimes where people are able to get ahead, and then there are times where they're not able to get ahead, right? Some people have seasonal jobs, some people have school, some people have this and that. Not everybody's life is completely in sync in terms of their schedule, right? Which is definitely one of the things when it comes to the creator event. That's definitely the biggest challenge more than anything. But at the same time, it's understandable, right? So when you think of that concept, I think it's very important to be able to have our voices heard when it comes to like the whole battle pass thing. I think it's really something reasonable to ask for. So yeah, 2-month seasons I think is a sweet spot. But again, in the comment section below, you guys can tell me. And of course, if you agree with me in terms of everything that I just mentioned, the battle pass, again, you could put that in down below. Now, continuing on, a lot of people have been saying at this point that the very least they could do is drop all 3 maps at once, as opposed to a new map every month. And I have to say, I actually agree with that, not because I'm impatient or anything like that. Look, whatever they do, as long as the game continues to get support and continues to move on from A to B, I'm one of the patient players that doesn't mind waiting however long it takes for the game to reach its destination and beyond. Okay, but that's not the majority of people. Okay, and I'm a person who plays the game a lot. I've played the game a lot from, you know, before launch up until now. So I think the reason why it's important to release all 3 maps at once is because it gives the launch of a new season that much more of a kick, right? It gives you more at once, so it makes it feel a lot more worthy and valuable, right? As opposed to just one map. And if you look at noobs, right? If you look at the most casual of the casual players, I feel bad for calling them noobs, to be honest, but when you look at the most casual of the casual players, right? What do they like when they're looking at a new season? Even the most casual players can be like, huh, just one new map? That kind of seems shallow. But all of a sudden, if it's like, okay, we got 3 new maps, then that seems a lot more satiating, so to speak, right? For the people that are playing the game, right? Because remember, it's also about content and features. Those are the things that make a season worthwhile. And especially when you have all the content of year 1 done already, and you've been working on year 2, which is something that we've known since around the time of launch, if I'm not mistaken, if memory serves correctly, you have all this stuff ready to go, but you're not giving it to all people at once. Now, I know the concept is to make the game feel fresh every single month by adding in one new map, but that's the problem. It doesn't feel fresh every single month because, again, it's just one new map. And again, this is coming from a person who is very patient, okay? Because when you think about it, you're getting the 3 new weapons at once. That's fine. Well, it's got to match with the 3 new maps. And then on top of that, let's not mention the fact that when it comes to anything they release in the store, obviously all that gets released at once. So if you're going to release content that's going to be in the store right away, then it's like, why not do this? Why not have the same exact concept with the weapons and everything else? So the maps are just kind of lagging behind when it comes to the whole, when it comes to like being in sync with everything else. So release all the maps at once. Now, some people have also been asking a little bit more content. But exactly how much more exactly are we talking about? Like, are you talking about twice the amount of weapons? So instead of 3, we get 6. Are you talking about like maybe 1 additional map instead of 3? Are you talking about 4 instead of 3? Like, what specifics exactly is everybody talking about, right? What is the biggest request in terms of like what would be satiating, right? So obviously, this is a bit of a challenge, obviously, because again, the seasons are shorter, and on top of that, you're asking for more content. So it's kind of like doubling down, so to speak. But when you look at the game itself, and in terms of where we are, and hopefully we're going to turn a corner here in Season 3 and really get ahead, I think if they were to actually do this starting in Season 3, or let's be more reasonable, because things have been kind of taking a slower burn of approach when it comes to XDefiant, because we don't have as many devs, plus everything else going on. I would say that if they were to do something in Season 4, now granted Season 3 would be better, but let's just say Season 4, right? To where it's like, okay, we want to finish our first year strong, et cetera, et cetera. Like if they started implementing the whole, changes, that'd be great. But obviously it's more likely to happen in year 2, to where it's like, okay, we've heard your feedback on the seasonal formula. We're going to make our seasons every 2 months instead of every 3 months. So there'd be 6 seasons per year as opposed to 4. And I would say if we get at least the same amount of content, if not slightly more content for those 2 months than what we've been getting in the 3-month period, plus obviously, the seasons being a month shorter, so that way you're getting more content and you're getting it more often per year, I would say that's a win. Obviously, in a perfect world, we'd be requesting a lot more. There's no doubt about it. But with that being said, it's it is something that is definitely worth discussing. Now, another part that I wanted to ask you guys is the factions. Do you think they need to double down on factions and release 2 per season as well, or just keep it to 1? Now, we know that factions are a big part of the game, obviously. They've all got different abilities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to be making a separate video in the future talking about, a faction rebalancing or stuff like that. And I'm going to go more over the videos that I did in the past and stuff like that. But anyway, because that is also another big deal that some people have been talking about, and it's become a bigger discussion over time when it comes to the game. But right now, the biggest thing, more importantly than that, is the amount of content. So should they double up on factions and give us 2 factions per season? Do you guys think they should do that? I think that would be a really good change. I think 2 is good. Obviously, like the more we get, the better. But at the same time, remember, it's not always, you got to hit the sweet spot, right? To where you're getting enough, and then in 8 weeks, you're ready for more, right? Because eventually what happens is if you get too much at once, that's going to be the new standard. But at the same time, it's going to give the devs too much, what's it called? It's going to give the devs too much, because there's going to be other things pop up with every single season that kind of gets released. Every single patch that they release, there's always going to be some sort of problem or obstacle that's going to pop up, right? So there needs to be time to address those as well. It's kind of like preparing your schedule in terms of what you want to do on a week-to-week basis, because the thing is, if they end up going too much and start giving too much, it's going to become the norm and it's going to backfire on them, right? It's like scheduling your own schedule. It's like, I'm sure there's some people in the comment section that like are barely on edge when it comes to their schedule, because they have an insane schedule between their work and then their off time, and they're spending so much time working and hardly having any time for themselves, and it ends up being a miserable experience. and they're all doing it so that way they can, you know, possibly get ahead or accomplish like other goals or whatnot. But at the same time, they're sacrificing a part of their sanity in order to do so. So the point, what I'm telling you is, we need to reach that sweet spot to where the devs don't sacrifice their sanity, and at the same time, we as fans, right, can be happier with everything that we're getting. So in the comments section below, I want you guys to tell me, would this be reasonable? 2 factions, maybe a couple more weapons, obviously all the maps being released at once, and probably maybe one additional map as well. You know, so it's like, you know, I mean, imagine getting a new map. Well, I'm sorry, not a new map every 2 weeks. We want all the maps at once, so that way the season can really feel like, you know, it's packing a punch over like not packing a punch. So do you think this would be something reasonable? Now, obviously, in between, you'd be having new game modes that are going to be released, whether they're limited time or not. And obviously, if they're not limited time, they're popular enough within the community and all that kind of stuff. Because there's rumors that a lot of them are coming, and it's already been discussed separately in another video. But do you guys think that this would be the winning formula for XDefiant, like at least by year 2? I mean, it'd be an awesome like gift that kind of came out of nowhere if they actually started doing this in season 3. I think that'd be pretty badass. Or even in season 4, because it's like, okay, we've heard your, you know, it's the new year. We want to start off strong. And even though we're not in year 2 yet, we still want to, you know, we want to do good by the community, and we're going to shorten our seasons or something like that. And we're going to get to year 2 faster or something like that. Like, does this all sound good to you guys? I mean, I want to know the specifics of what you would request down in the comment section below, because I do know that the XDefiant devs are indeed watching and listening. So, but I want to know. I'm really curious. So with that being said, guys, before we end it here, I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking about the 2 Thanksgiving movies that I'm recommending to you. So which 2 Thanksgiving movies am I recommending to you? I'm going to name the obvious one first, because I recommend this every year. Well, I used, when I did Call of Duty videos, like there was one point in time where I would recommend this movie every single year. And I'm not gonna leave this movie out of it. It's just too good. It's too good. So the first movie I recommend is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It stars Steve Martin and the late John Candy, and it is, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of Dumb and Dumber. This movie came out like a few years, I think, before Dumb and Dumber, and it is just an absolute classic. And the movies also has heart as well. So, but it is a comedy through and through. Even though there are definitely dramatic moments, it's definitely a movie worth watching, and it's definitely a movie that's going to have you, it's going to give you your fair share of laughs as well. It is one I highly recommend, and you should not miss. And I know it's a 90s film, and I know some of you guys, most of you guys that watch me are probably around, you know, give or take 5 to 10 years my age, so you might be familiar with it already or seen it or heard of it. But even for those of you guys that are younger, trust me when I tell you, it is definitely worth it. So Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is the first one, and then the second one is Son-in-Law. This is with Pauly Shore. And back in the 90s, Pauly Shore was a big name, and a very, very unique touch to comedy. Very, he had his own style. He was like so different than everybody else, but everybody dug it or whatnot. And yeah, Son-in-Law is a great film. It is a classic film. I like to go back and watch it, even when it's not Thanksgiving. And it is a comedy, there's no doubt about it. But at the same time, the film does have a few points to where it definitely shows its heart. But at its core and everything else, it is a movie that is, it is definitely about making you laugh and just kind of forgetting the seriousness of life. But at the same time, it's a representation of life, because when you get a guy that's been in college for way too long, that a friend of his takes him home to the farm, right? His female friend takes him home to the farm where it's a completely different type of life or whatnot, and you got his style of comedy thrown in. You can't, it really mixes in very well. You know, you think it wouldn't, but it actually does. It's absolutely incredible. So those are the 2 Thanksgiving films that I would recommend you guys take a look at if you haven't already. And if you have, I'm pretty sure there are some of you in the comment section below that make it a point to like at least watch these movies from time to time, because they're that good. So again, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and Son-in-Law. Totally worth it. So with that being said, guys, I want to know down below what you guys think of XDefiant's seasonal future. How would you do it? Give all the specifics and opinions and everything down below. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you all for taking the time to watch and or listen. I hope you guys have a great holiday if I don't make another video before then, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.